every Money in the Bank cash in if the original winner would have cashed in on the other champion. Of course, you guys already know the winner of the Money in the Bank contract has the opportunity to cash in on the champion of their choosing, and we have a long list of these cash-ins, but what would have happened if these winners would have cashed in on their other option for the world champion? The original winner, Edge, had cashed in 2006 on John Cena, but what if he would have cashed in on Dave Batista, who was the world champion at that point? Now, he could have waited a little bit longer for the Royal Rumble, and it would have been Kurt Angle, but it would have been interesting to see Edge cash in on Batista, or even someone like Kurt Angle. 2006 winner Rob Van Dam had originally cashed in on John Cena, but what if he had cashed in on the world's champion, Rey Mysterio? It would have been a nice revisiting of their former tag team partnership on SmackDown. Now, the 2007 Money in the Bank winner would have been an interesting one because it was originally Mr. Kennedy, but if everything would have lined up the way it had originally, Edge would have been cashing in on the WWE champion, John Cena. How cool would that have been to see the parallel from 2006? 2008, CM Punk had cashed in on world champion Edge, but what if he cashed in on the WWE champion Triple H, building up their feud much earlier than expected? And then in 2009, CM Punk had originally cashed in on Jeff Hardy, but what if he had cashed in on the newly crowned world champion Batista? 2010 saw 3 different Money in the Bank winners, and Jack Swagger had originally cashed in on the world champion Chris Jericho, but what if he had cashed in on the WWE champion John Cena? I'm going to tell you right now, I already know how that would have ended. Pretty sure he would not have successfully cashed in. But then you look at Kane, who had cashed in on Rey Mysterio the very same night he had won the briefcase, but Kane could have also cashed in on the WWE champion Sheamus. And finally, The Miz had cashed in his briefcase on the WWE champion Randy Orton, but in a parallel universe, what if he cashed in on the world champion that could have been Kane? In 2011, Alberto Del Rio had cashed in on CM Punk for the WWE title, but what if he cashed in on Randy Orton, who was the world heavyweight champion that very same night at SummerSlam? And Daniel Bryan, who won the briefcase for the SmackDown brand, had cashed in on the Big Show following his World Heavyweight Championship win at TLC. But what if Bryan Danielson, aka Daniel Bryan, cashed in on the WWE champion that was CM Punk? I would hope that would kickstart a tremendous rivalry between the two. Again, a little bit earlier than what we were expecting. In 2012, John Cena won the briefcase. He cashed in on CM Punk, but imagine a world where he would have cashed in on the World Heavyweight Champion, Sheamus, the battle of the two top baby faces at that time. I mean, John Cena, the company guy, and Sheamus, who was the clean-cut babyface that they were kind of trying to elevate at that point. In 2012, Dolph Ziggler had won the briefcase, and in 2013, he would cash in on Del Rio for the world title. But imagine if he would have cashed in on John Cena, who had just won the WWE Championship from The Rock at WrestleMania 29. If you thought that original cash-in was lit, I think this one would have been even more exciting. 2013, Randy Orton cashed in on Daniel Bryan, but what if he cashed in on Alberto Del Rio? I feel like a lot more people would have been more accepting of that type of a cash-in. Also in 2013, Damian Sandow had cashed in the World Championship opportunity on John Cena, but what if in this parallel universe he had cashed in on the WWE Champion, Randy Orton? I think, again, the result would still be the same. So from 2014 to 2016, there was only one World Championship after they had unified the titles. So in a parallel universe, what if they used that opportunity to cash in on the NXT champion? Starting with 2014, Seth Rollins was the winner. He cashed in obviously on Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania 31, inserting himself into the main event. But at that time, NXT's champion was Kevin Owens. Imagine a world where Seth Rollins cashes in on Kevin Owens. And in 2015, Sheamus was the winner of the contract, and instead of cashing in on Roman Reigns, imagine him cashing in on Finn Balor for the NXT title. I find that very intriguing. I do think it would be a step down, though, because it is the NXT title rather than the world title, but Sheamus versus Finn Balor is something I can get behind. 2016 saw Dean Ambrose cash in on Seth Rollins following his defeat of Roman Reigns, having all members of the Shield win the WWE title in one night. But he could have cashed in on the NXT champion Samoa Joe. Samoa Joe, Dean Ambrose feuding over a world title. Yeah, I don't think that's something we'd be seeing anytime soon. In 2017, Baron Corbin won the briefcase and failed to cash in on Jinder Mahal for the WWE title. But imagine a world where he says, you know what, I'm going to be adventurous. I'm going to go after the Universal Champion, Brock Lesnar. And again, you guys already know what would have happened. Was not going to be Brock Lesnar. Who would be Brock Lesnar in 2017? Of course, if you weren't named Roman Reigns. 2017 was also the first time we saw a women's Money in the Bank ladder match, and Carmella was the inaugural winner who would cash in on Charlotte Flair almost a year later, but she also could have cashed in on the Raw Women's Champion, Nia Jax. In 2018, Alexa Bliss won the Women's Money in the Bank contract and cashed in on Nia Jax, but in this universe, what if she had cashed in on Carmella, who was the SmackDown Women's Champion at that time? And then as for the men, Braun Strowman would cash in on Roman Reigns, but in this universe, he would have been cashing in on AJ Styles for the WWE title. 2019, Bayley would cash in on Charlotte Flair, but if it wasn't her, she could have been cashing in on the Raw Women's Champion, Becky Lynch, still tackling that 4 horsewomen storyline between all those women. I still think it would have been a tremendous cash-in, but I do think they went the right call here, having her beat Charlotte. And then for the men in 2019, Brock Lesnar won the briefcase, which I still think shouldn't have happened. I still wonder why they went with that direction, because he doesn't need the briefcase. He would cash in on Seth Rollins just to lose it a month later. But in this universe, instead of the WWE Universal Champion, he'd be cashing on the WWE Champion, Kofi Kingston, who he still ended up beating in like 5 seconds on SmackDown. I hated that. I hated this year for Brock Lesnar, but that's for another video. 2020, Asuka was the winner of the Money in the Bank contract, and she actually would win the Raw Women's Championship because Becky Lynch announced that she was pregnant. But in a world where that didn't happen, she could have also been cashing in on the SmackDown Women's Champion, Bayley. And again, another one of those decisions that I still find baffling. Otis wins the Money in the Bank briefcase in 2020. He would lose it to The Miz, so I guess we'll go with The Miz as the cash-in, who actually cashed in on Drew McIntyre for the WWE title. But rather than him, he could have been cashing in on Roman Reigns. And I still think that in itself lends us to believe that it would not have been a successful cash-in, yet another failure. 2021, Nikki ASH, aka Nikki Cross, she would have been cashing in on Bianca Belair. And although Nikki was able to win the title originally, her up against Bianca at that point, I highly doubt she would have successfully cashed in. Yet another failure. As for the men's, Big E finally wins the WWE Championship, defeating Bobby Lashley. But in a world where that doesn't happen, it would have been Big E one-on-one with Roman Reigns. Does he actually cash in successfully? Doubtful, but still, that would have been quite the task for Big E versus Roman Reigns. And in 2022, Liv Morgan, she would cash in her opportunity on Ronda Rousey. But what if instead of Ronda Rousey, she cashed in on the SmackDown Women's Champion, Bianca Belair? This has money all over it. I would have loved to have seen this type of a matchup, and let alone just storyline between these two. Would Liv Morgan have successfully done so? That's up for you to debate, but honestly, I still would have been down to have seen this matchup. And in 2022, Theory, Austin Theory, now that we know him, won the contract and for some reason cashed in for the US title, and he failed to do so. In this world, he's cashing in on the world champion. That would have been Roman Reigns. And if you thought that last cash-in was really bad for the US title, I could only imagine what Roman would have done to it. This is by far the easiest one to predict. Theory's not beating Roman. Nobody was beating Roman at that point, which in hindsight, I guess makes sense why they went for the US title, but still, you gotta try, right? In 2023, Io Sky would cash in her opportunity on Bianca Belair, who had just won the SmackDown Championship at that point. But in this parallel universe, what if she cashes in on Rhea Ripley? That is an enticing feud, and it's something we revisited earlier this year at WrestleMania 41. But Io Sky and Rhea Ripley at that point, sign me up. Speaking of the Judgment Day, Damian Priest had won in 2023, and although he had originally cashed in on Seth Rollins, rather Drew McIntyre, who had won after WrestleMania 40, in this world he would have been cashing in on Cody Rhodes. Cody Rhodes versus Damian Priest for a world title. I think that's something we will see in the foreseeable future, but back then in 2023/2024, don't know if Damian Priest gets it done. And in last year's Money in the Bank event, Drew McIntyre won for the men, and he had failed to cash in for the World Championship. But in this world, he would have been cashing in on Cody Rhodes. And again, same thing. See the previous answer for Damian Priest. I don't know if Drew McIntyre does so. I think it would have been interesting to see Drew McIntyre versus Cody Rhodes. Again, another feud that I think we'll see down the line. Finally, Tiffany Stratton, the latest cash in for the Money in the Bank briefcase. Earlier this year in January, she'd cashed in on Nia Jax, but if she would have waited around the same time, it could have been Liv Morgan that she would have cashed in on, or a little bit later after the first Raw on Netflix, it would have been Rhea Ripley. These are some of the many what-if scenarios as to who would have been cashing in on which champion at that point. But if you enjoyed this video of the what-ifs, make sure you like the video, comment down below which one of these scenarios is most enticing to you, and make sure you subscribe to the channel for more videos like these on YouTube. Of course, my name is Jose Ramos Jr. Thank you for joining me in today's video, and I'll see you all in the next one.